Hello, hi, hola, ciao, bonjour, annyeong, privet, konnichiwa. It's simply the word hello in English, Spanish, Italian, French, Korean, Russian, and Japanese. The world around us speaks an incredible variety of languages. In fact, humanity communicates using about 7,000 different languages. And that number is honestly mind-blowing. What makes it even more complicated is that each of those languages often comes with several dialects and different pronunciations. But here's the big question. Why do so many languages exist? Why don't we all just agree on one single language so everyone can understand each other? The Tower of Babel story. One of the most famous stories people often tell is that, long ago, all humans spoke a single common language. Everything was simple and easy until a group decided to build a giant tower to reach the sky in the city of Babylon. According to the story, divine punishment struck. Their tongues were confused, and suddenly, people began speaking in different, unintelligible languages. Terrified, they scattered across the earth. But while this story is widespread, it's more myth than fact. There's no solid evidence to support it. Languages come from older languages. Before we dive deeper, let's get one thing straight. No language ever just appeared out of nowhere. Every modern language is derived from an older one, and that one came from an even older one, and so on, until we eventually reach what linguists call a proto-language, or the original mother tongue, from which all others branched off. Languages can be grouped into families. For example, Arabic, Aramaic, Ethiopian, and Chadic all belong to the Afroasiatic family. English, French, Russian, and Hindi belong to the Indo-European family. So yes, once upon a time, humanity did share a single linguistic root. Over centuries, that root split into new languages and entire families of languages. Why did that split happen? Here's the real answer: migration and isolation. As human populations grew, groups split up and moved to different parts of the world. Some settled along the Nile, some in China, some in Europe, and others spread north or west. At first, they still spoke the same language. But once they encountered new environments, things changed. Each group discovered new plants, animals, and objects, and they needed to invent words for them. Let me give you a funny example. Imagine two friends. Let's call them Ahmed and Muhammad. They both spoke the same language. But one day, Ahmed's family migrated to a new land, and Muhammad's family moved somewhere else. Ahmed encountered a strange striped animal, black and white like a horse. He decided to call it Mint. Meanwhile, Muhammad's family, living far away, saw the same animal and named it Samson. Years later, Ahmed and Muhammad meet again. Ahmed sees Muhammad riding a zebra and shouts, "Why are you hitting the mint?" Muhammad replies, "Mint? This is Samson." Awkward silence. Cue cricket sounds. Cricket. That's exactly how it happened with early humans. Every group came up with new words for the things around them. Over centuries, these small differences piled up until their languages became completely different. the role of time. But it's not just about migration. Time changes languages too. Each generation uses words differently. Some words fall out of use, new ones are created, and pronunciations evolve. Even English changes year by year. If a modern English speaker tried to read a medieval English text, they'd barely recognize it. They might even mistake it for German or Italian. The same thing happened with Arabic. Many words from classical Arabic poetry, like those in Al-Shah's famous pre-Islamic odes, are almost incomprehensible to modern Arabic speakers. And if you took modern slang like, "What's up, bro?" back 1,000 years, your ancestors would look at you like you're speaking nonsense. So, isolation plus time equals the creation of new languages. Weird and wonderful languages. Here's where things get really fascinating. Some languages around the world don't just differ in words, but in how they think about the world. In the Amazon rainforest, the Piraha language has no words for numbers. They only use concepts like a few or many. Imagine never being able to say, "I want 3 apples." In parts of Africa, the Xhosa language uses clicks as part of everyday speech. To an outsider, it sounds almost musical. On the island of La Gomera in Spain, people actually whistle their language across valleys. Yes, they literally whistle to communicate, and it works perfectly. These examples show that language isn't just about words. It's about how people experience the world around them. Dying languages. But here's the sad part. Languages can die. Every 2 weeks, one language disappears from the planet, forever. That's around 25 languages vanishing every year. With them, we don't just lose words, we lose stories, traditions, and ways of thinking that existed for centuries. For example, some Native American languages are spoken today by fewer than 100 people. If those last speakers pass away without teaching others, the language is gone. Just like that. That's why linguists are racing to record and preserve endangered languages before it's too late. The idea of a universal language. Now you might say, okay, but what if we invent a new universal language for everyone? Problem solved. Great idea, but humanity has already tried. Not once, not twice, but over 300 attempts were made to create a world language. The most famous was Esperanto, invented in the late 19th century. It was easy to learn, fun, and supported by many countries. Millions of people even studied it across Europe, the Americas, Asia, and parts of the Arab world. But eventually it faded away. Why? Because people are deeply attached to their mother tongues. Language isn't just communication. It's identity, history, and culture. Giving that up for an artificial language felt meaningless. And even if we succeeded in uniting the world under one language, it wouldn't last. Over centuries, groups would start tweaking it, changing pronunciation, inventing slang, and eventually creating new languages again. The future of language. Now let's peek into the future. Will English remain the global language? Maybe for a while, since it dominates business, science, and the internet. But who knows? In 200 years, another language could rise to take its place. And with technology, new forms of communication are already emerging. Think about it. Emojis are like a new universal alphabet face with tears of joy fire raising hands. Programming languages let humans and machines talk. Artificial intelligence is even creating its own ways of processing meaning. It's wild to imagine that in the future, people might use a mix of words, emojis, and code as their everyday language. So why so many languages? In short, early humans migrated and got isolated. They invented new words for their environments. Time changed how people used and pronounced words. Some languages evolved in very unusual ways. Attempts at unifying languages always failed because culture and identity matter. And in the future, languages will keep changing, maybe in ways we can't even imagine. That's why, instead of one single language, we now have thousands, each a unique reflection of human history and creativity. So, while a universal language sounds nice in theory, in reality it's almost impossible. Languages are living things, and as long as humanity evolves, so will the ways we speak. If you've ever had a random late-night question, drop it in the comments, we might just make a video about it. Until next time, goodbye? Or should I say, ciao, adios, au revoir, annyeong privet, sayonara?